All right. Can you turn off the music? Excellent. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I know how you busy you are, so we really appreciate your time. I am Jinesh Varia. I'm the CEO of Industrility from beautiful Seattle here. We'd like to welcome all of you. Today, I'm very excited to join to host this webinar with our esteemed guest speakers. But before, a couple of housekeeping items. Webinar is being recorded. We will send the recording to you, after the session. And I also encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A. And we'll do our best to answer. We have all after the webinar. I mean, after the presentation. Finally, I have a distinct pleasure, and I'm super excited today to introduce our speakers. Both of them are from London. Achint is our co-founder, of Industrility, and have worked at manufacturing sectors for over 15 to 17 years in companies like Honeywell, Rolls-Royce, and in the overall SAP ecosystem. While I have a distinct pleasure to invite our guest speaker, Dr. Parikshit Naik, who is an expert as well as a PhD in servitization from our advanced services group, who is our partner. And we work very closely with them to help manufacturers really understand the value of product as a service or servitization over here. So with this, we welcome to all of you. We are super excited today. We have packed content and demos for you. And with that, I'd like to bring on Achint. Please kick it off.
Thank you so much, Jinesh, for that introduction. All right, so I'm an entrepreneur. I like to keep things simple. So let me start off with what we mean by servitization, and obviously Parikshit will take us through the how and the why and what of servitization. But in very simplistic terms, traditional businesses, they sell products. Engineering companies, they sell products, and service is very much a reactive approach. Think of your experience of your car. You buy your car from a dealer, from a manufacturer through a dealer, and then for the first 3 years, you often go to them and they give you, if there's something to be repaired, they'll give you a quote for a part and quote for a service, and you almost feel cheated. That's too expensive, and that is very much an experience of a very opaque service and reactive service experience that most industrial manufacturers give to their customers with an expectation that they'll try to make as much money as they can. And that is, one reactive. And often what we have noticed is over a period of 2 or 3 years, they eventually try to get that service either in-house or through other service partners. Then comes some more mature organizations where they are service centric, they are proactive when it comes to their service. Service is very much a part of their business model. And on the left hand side, the reactive businesses, their service and parts market share is not market share, but the revenue percentage of revenue is typically 5% compared to their total revenue. Whereas companies who are doing extremely well in service centric businesses, companies like Tetra Pak, companies like Caterpillar, John Deere, Carrier, those companies, they have their aftermarket service and proactive service business almost 50 to 60% of their total revenue. And they are much more closer to their customers, and they are very much a partner. And a natural evolution from there is enabling selling outcomes as a service. So not just selling a product and a service, but selling for a compressor company, selling air as a service, or as Tesla announced recently, robo taxis. So the cars will be available as a service, and there is clear benefits to the customer where the ROI is much better. And for the manufacturer, it's more recurring revenue, it's higher margins, and they are aligned with the customer for a much longer period of time. And so what we believe is AI is very much an accelerator for this. This journey, if you think of Rolls-Royce who offer power, pay by the hour, pay by power by the hour, they have deployed this over 30 years. If you think of again Tetra Pak, Caterpillars, they have built these ecosystems over 15 years. We think AI is an accelerator to enable this journey at a much faster rate, where re- where reactive businesses can be much faster and better in terms of offering customer support to their customers, proactive services enabled with IoT and enabled with AI can offer much better service contracts, and the as a service journey can be much faster. So as part of the presentation today, we'll bring on Parikshit now to present the what, the why, and the how of servitization. And then I'll come on to show you very specific examples of how AI will act as an accelerator to this journey. And with this, it gives me great pleasure to bring on Parikshit.
Thanks a lot, Achint. And it's an absolute pleasure to join you and Jinesh as well, and the team at Industrility. We are very happy as ASG to be working with you. And good morning and good afternoon to everybody joining us. I'm very glad to see some familiar names in the audience. So looking forward to this discussion and, of course, learning a bit more about how Industriality's AI offerings can, as Achint said, and I completely agree, accelerate the servitization journey. And to dive a bit deeper into the brilliant graphic that Achint had on the screen, if you looked at the different circles and how services built more part of or created a bigger share within that circle, that's how we see servitization as well in the advanced services group. And as an organization, we have been focusing on how manufacturers can implement successfully and accelerate their servitization journeys for almost a decade. And in this period, we have worked with more than 450 businesses, small and large, across the globe and in different sectors. So some of the content that I will show you today is really bringing the research and our understanding from all of this experience together and showing you exactly what it is, why you should be looking at it, and how do you implement it. And I would also go into a bit more detail on how we see AI playing an enabling role into that. So let's start with this idea of building the services portfolio, or as the pie chart Achint showed, how do you enrich the circle with more services? And that's exactly how we see servitization. So you can see on the screen what we call the services staircase. And what it describes is 3 types of services that every manufacturing organization provides or can provide to its target markets. At the bottom of the staircase, you see the orange steps. These are what we call base services. The outcome of these services is purely focused on providing the very basic capability of a product, which is we will deliver you product and we will sell you some spare parts if the product breaks down or you need to change something. The second level is what we call intermediate services, indicated by the purple steps. Now the outcome of intermediate steps is to focus on the condition of the product. So now we have gone beyond just creating the basic level of products and supplying the spare parts to it, but now we are focused on how do you make sure the condition of these products is maintained and even improved as we go further. And you can see the 3 typical services within that, which is break fix. So you would repair something, assured maintenance. You would guarantee the performance of maintenance during a certain period. So typically you would imagine, you can see standard service level agreements, SLAs in this area. And you would look at performance advisory. And this is where things start getting more interesting. This is where a manufacturer starts focusing on the customer's business more than just their product. Performance advisory is about helping the customer make better use of the product, using data, using the knowledge that the manufacturer and only the manufacturer holds. And beyond that, as we go into the final 3 steps, we call them advanced services. This is where outcome as a service really comes to life. And you're looking at customer asset capability, where you are guaranteeing as a manufacturer the outcome delivered from the use of your product. Then the next one, process capability, is where you're guaranteeing the outcome from the process in which your product sits. And finally, you're guaranteeing the platform capability. So you are almost looking at the customer's business itself and saying, we will help you and guarantee more success for your entire business based on the operation and working of our products. Now, what is servitization? It is not one of these steps. It is the journey of moving from any step lower to any step higher up. It is about gradually building this services portfolio. And like Achint showed in his pie chart, the businesses that gradually build this services portfolio become more proactive in addressing their customers' challenges and becoming more of a partner to their customer than merely a supplier of equipment. And of course, as you start going closer to the customer, you can see on the x-axis, you start absorbing more risk as a provider. It is rightly positioned risk because you are technically more competent in understanding the challenges of this product as the manufacturer. And at the same time, as higher up you go, you create more value for the customer. You're taking away some of the processes that they shouldn't be focusing on, and they should be focusing on their core abilities, what makes them money. And this is how we see the idea of servitization. It is a strategy of moving from outputs to outcomes. It is about moving away from pure ownership to usership. And that is how you develop the services portfolio. Now, why is it important? And for some, it might be too small of text on the screen. So I'll highlight some of the key points in this area. But there are many arguments for why servitization should be the focus of manufacturing firms, and it already is. If you haven't come across the term servitization, you have come across its principles in one or the other way. But a majority of the majority of manufacturers out in the world right now face commoditization in their markets, where their products are purely competing based on being the cheapest product out there. Not everybody wants to adopt that strategy. Many manufacturers are reaching a technological maturity where your product cannot get more advanced unless you entirely redesign and change the way it operates. So how much better can you provide? How much faster can you be towards your customer? And therefore, you need to find a new strategy to compete differently in the markets. And what servitization does is provides you 4 ways of competing differently. The blue box, is all about performance. How do you perform better by servitization? There's the revenue argument of how you can increase revenue streams through new services. There's the profitability argument, where it is widely accepted of how services are more profitable than products and just selling spare parts. And then there's the productivity argument about how it improves not just the manufacturer's productivity, but also the customer's productivity by consuming more services than just products. You also have the growth argument, where you're looking at new market segments. So services can unlock areas that you haven't yet served because it's a different offering altogether. You could be looking at export because there are certain barriers to export which are very exclusive to products which do not translate the same to services, and that will open new channels for you. And there's also the new product introduction argument, where there are manufacturers with new technology. Achint mentioned robotaxis, and I would love to have a chat with Elon about this business model. But when you are bringing a new technology in the market, there is no incumbent culture of consumption to break. You can set the new culture with this new business model. And I'll give you a very brief example. If you look at how heating systems in homes are consumed, for example, boilers, it is hard to break the value network of a boiler being sold to a distributor, an installer buying it from the distributor, and then installing it on our home. There's many players in this. There are existing behaviors in this value chain. But if you bring a new equipment, say a heat pump with solar panels into it, there's not enough existing culture and practices that need to be broken. It's an easier way to say, listen, this is all complicated, we understand, but we can take away this pain with a new business model. You also have the sustainability and the resilience arguments, which are at the bottom left and right. And with sustainability, it's very much driven by the circular economy argument of how servitization and outcome as a service propositions can drive you more towards reuse and recycling of these equipment, just like power by the hour that Achint mentioned from Rolls-Royce. The engines stay in circulation for longer because the manufacturer is incentivized to make the most use of these assets, because that's how the contracts work. And at the same time, there's also dematerialization. Because these products stay longer in the supply chain and in the industry, overall, the manufacturer is consuming less resources out in the world. So it is more environmentally conscious as an approach. And at the same time, it's also more resilient. And there's the argument of how it breaks or adds more competitive barriers, because services are very hard to replicate. A product can be reverse engineered to a certain degree. Of course, there are patents to protect you. But with services, it is very much driven by the customer experience and the relationship you develop with your customers. And that is what really brings resilience. So there's many reasons of why servitization can be one of your strategies to compete differently in the market. Now, is anybody else doing it? Yes, there are many. Whether they call it servitization or not, essentially they are. And I would like to take you through some examples of businesses that we work with, we have worked with, that are doing it. And let's start with Goodyear. And this is a very timely discussion, because Goodyear just last month announced that they will be officially launching Tire as a Service in Europe and in the US. And over a period of almost 7 years, we have been working with Goodyear in many ways, focusing on how do you move away from selling just these black rubber tires with a hole in the middle to becoming more of a partner to the customer. How do you do that with such a commoditized product already? And it is quite difficult, but it's a business model innovation that unlocked it for them. And they focused on targeting one specific segment, which was their commercial fleet management. And they offered these commercial fleets the service of monitoring their tires, understanding their tire pressure, tire treads, because poor tire maintenance contributes to a majority of breakdowns and unexpected breakdowns. And these unexpected breakdowns increase their TCO over multiple years. So if you want to reduce the TCO of these fleets, what can we do as Goodyear? We can help them be best at maintaining their tires and replacing them, repairing them as and when needed. How do we do that? We create an entirely new business model called Tire as a Service. And that's what they launched just last month, and an excellent news for all of us. Another example is Niedermann that we have worked with in ASG before. Niedermann produce air filtration equipment that is installed in factories, that is installed in workshops. And the whole point of this equipment is to purify the air for health and safety regulations and for, of course, environmental regulations to not let out bad gases into the atmosphere. And the way Needleman wanted to compete in the future is it wanted to be the clean air company and not just an equipment supplier. And the way it did that is focusing on how do we help monitor the factories and their air quality and their air outlets better, first of all. And secondly, how do we help them improve that and become more of a partner in their air purification? And this is again where digital technology played an excellent role. In the case of Goodyear, they use digital technology to enable their service offering. In the case of Needleman, they use servitization as a way to monetize their digital offerings. So you see the vice versa in this case, that servitization became a model to monetize their digital investments. And Needleman have something called Needleman Insight, and you can look it up. It's a digital platform that brings together insights around the factory and provides them with performance advisory on how they can improve their operations to reduce the impact on environment and also the particles in the air that they have. And this at the same time helps them use their filters and their purification systems better. And we have other examples, such as Omron Industrial Automation as well, who we have worked with in creating new services across the board and helping them enrich their services portfolio. But we can go into more examples as we move into questions if anybody would like to hear more about them. But these, especially Goodyear, Needleman, Omron, are some of the key examples where we are seeing a lot of uptake on building the services portfolio. It doesn't mean they jumped from the bottom of the staircase to the top. It is about building slowly upwards. And how do you do it? It is complicated, and it's our job to bring it into a simple level. And the way we describe it, it is a 4-task methodology: explore, engage, expand, and exploit. And within each task, there are 3 activities that you need to carry out. And those activities, once you build enough momentum, will tip you into the next task. The core objective of Explore is to really understand and build an argument for whether servitization and growing that services staircase is the right strategy for your business. Build the resources to experiment further, and that is contributing to your coalition, the core team that will do this. And then we help businesses move into engage, where we really engage with the customer. And you co-create with the customer what their value, what business value we can create for them. So that's the discover phase. Then you hypothesize a new value proposition and a business model, and you demonstrate that this is valuable for the customer and valuable for the manufacturer. That is very important. And then you go into expansion, which is all about scaling this now demonstrated valuable business model. Now you want to replicate that across multiple customers in the target segment and potentially explore new segments. And you strengthen that business model further with weapons grade digital systems. You're optimizing some of your processes. That, of course, requires investment, which is your second activity in that. And the third one is the activities rollout, where you put that value proposition globally or in a multi-region approach and take it to customers and keep optimizing it, because regional differences will always affect how this business model turns out. We see that the likes of Rolls-Royce and similar businesses are very much past this expand stage now, and they are in the exploit level, where they are exploiting the value of these business models by recognizing what is good about them, bringing them up to the highlight. And today, Rolls-Royce Aviation, especially, makes a majority of its revenue out of service contracts. It is a manufacturer, and it makes money out of services more than it makes money out of products. And that's a big statement to make for any manufacturer, because having worked with so many, it is very common thing we hear listen, we are engineers, we make products, we shift boxes. These services, these are intangible. And the funniest thing that I've heard is somebody asking, how do you differentiate between a product and a service? And they said, well, if you drop a thing on your foot and it hurts, that's a product. If you drop something on your foot and you don't know what it is, it's most likely a service because you can't feel it, you can't see it, it's purely intangible. Well, that intangible thing is really creating the competitive advantage for these businesses. So how is it relevant to today's challenges and opportunities? Achint very rightly mentioned at the beginning that it has taken some of these pioneering businesses decades to get this over the line. Rolls-Royce, staying with that example, 2 to 3 decades to get it to that exploit stage. But you can do it faster with the methodology I explained. And how does it relate to your today's challenges and opportunities? And we tried to understand this from the AI perspective. Earlier this year, we launched this white paper, which discusses the preparedness of manufacturers to adopt AI for servitization. And it explained a number of use cases that are today's challenges for manufacturers and how AI can be a key part in addressing those. It, of course, starts with the likes of predictive maintenance, but comes down to something very simple as consumables management as well. And on a more performance advisory side, you also have the knowledge creation and the advisory services that AI can enable. And at the same time, it can also improve the operational misuse, repair efficiencies, and many other applications. And I would encourage all those who are interested to read this white paper, and we can provide the link later on. And Industrility were a key part in contributing to this white paper with us. But more importantly than focusing on the industry challenges that we see, we looked at 2 specific industries over the past 2 years, and we have seen almost the same challenges across the 2 industries. And what we saw is in the HVAC industry, there is a push for accelerating decarbonization. There is key, it's absolutely critical for the HVAC industry to look at the energy crisis and find ways to share the risk with its consumers and customers during this time. And similarly, in the process equipment side, it has its sector challenges, which also have decarbonization, which are also affected by energy crisis, but they also face some complex issues around how there's increased demand for processing equipment, but at the same time, there's also requirement for deep customization. How do you balance that out? There's reduced expenditure budgets, but at the same time, there's a lot of demand for automation because there's lack of skilled labor. And there's balance to be brought between these challenges. And whether it's HVAC industry, whether it's process equipment industry, or whether it's many of the other sectors out there, these challenges reappear and they are very similar. And what we found in both of these white papers is servitization can really bring together a solution to address them. But the key accelerator for servitization here is digital technology. And especially now as we move into more AI-enabled solutions out there, it is almost an opportunity too important to lose for manufacturers. And at this point, I would like to hand over to Achint to tell us a bit more about these applications and opportunities.
Hey, Parikshit, that was great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that explanation of why doing servitization. I think it was clear, focus on profitability, sustainability, getting competitive advantage. So I think that was great. I think that if I can pick up on one thing before I go into the AI space, a question from my side. You mentioned if it's a manufacturer that is newer, they're only doing it for the last 5-10 years, it's almost easier for them, like the heat pump example, it's easier for them to go down the servitization because they don't have the legacy. Whereas If it's a company that's existed for 50, 70 years, they have the whole legacy install base, and then they start servitization on a small part, they almost never get the prioritized funding. What is, maybe if you can just share a couple of insights from your experience, how do they bring the organization together, and how do you guys help bringing the organization together to make that almost business transition?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I'll quickly take both sides of a very new manufacturer and a very old manufacturer. A very new one is, as I said, very interesting to work with. And one example is a business called Cool Mill, a very small business based in Birmingham that created new equipment for milling rice and grains very differently. And because it was a technological innovation, it was breaking the industry standards already. And by putting a new business model along with that, it was changing the way these new technology will be consumed. And it also protected them because what they suggested to the farming community is you have been buying very old equipment that isn't delivering the right outcomes for you. We will provide you with this new technology, which is almost 60% better than what you already had. It's hard to believe, I understand. It's of course going to be hard to operate. And therefore, we would like to take that pain away from you. You only have to pay us for every ton of rice our machine produces. All you have to do is put the tons of paddy, which is the raw material, into the machine. We will monitor it. We will operate it remotely from Sheffield. Whether the machine is in China, Cambodia, or India, it doesn't matter. We will optimize it, and we guarantee the quality and the amount of rice your machine will produce. All you have to do is pay us for that amount of rice you make. This is an easier transition to a certain extent. It has its own challenges because you don't have the brand value that you bring of the big Goodyears and the Rolls Royces of the world. But at the same time, if you have that big brand value to taking the example of Goodyear tires, you have the reputation that is going to open doors in the right places for you. But you also have the inertia of this juggernaut, which has been just pummeling down the highway selling tires and only cares about selling tires. How do you break that momentum? And it starts with a very experimental phase of starting with the customer, engaging the customer early on to truly understand their business's pains and gains. The voice of customer is focused on how can we make your business more successful as a tire manufacturer, and starting from there to create a service proposition that brings together a tire and new services into a new business model. And our way of working with both of these businesses has really been going through those four tasks that I mentioned, helping them explore, first of all, validating whether servitization is the right thing for you. Secondly, helping them engage with the client in a more fruitful way. It's not a typical key account manager doing VOCs. It's a very different conversation you want to have here. And then helping them scale that business model further. And that's what we've been doing with the Niedermans and the Omrons of the world for the past 7, 8 years.
Fantastic. That's great. So it's very much customer first, and then work backwards from there. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Parikshit. So if I can take that as a segue in terms of what are, as manufacturers, what are your customers expecting today? So I was at Fashpack in Germany. I was at IMTS recently, and again, there's lots of research that talks about, Oxford Economics, 70% of your customers are expecting hyper customized machinery. So they are expecting more customization in your machinery, and they're expecting it faster. So they're expecting faster time to market. The second thing is they are also expecting a lot of personalization, right? They want to know what's specifically for their machine, what is going on, instead of going to a generic place where there are 1,000 documents and finding out, what to look for, or having 100 sensor values and then figuring out what's working. There is a hyper personalization expected, like my Tesla, where for that car they will give you everything that is required, and you don't have to go at various places. And then this is something that Parikshit also touched on, which was there is a renewed focus on profitability, and the machinery itself is almost commoditized. And so the profit margins on the machineries are going down, but the profit margins on services, are as high as 30, 35%. And on spare parts are as high as 80, 90, 100%. And so if you are able to be more connected with your customers throughout the lifetime of that equipment, which could be 20 to 50 years, you have a much higher profit margins that you can make. However, the problems that we have seen is as you sell to your customers, you do it through distributors, and you often lose that link. Your focus is purely on selling machines, and so you're not that connected with your customers. And we believe if the more you are connected with your customers, the more you have the opportunity to share that risk, to partner with them, to learn with them, and hence do the upsell and cross sell. But one of the common problems we have is also the data is sitting in lots of different places. They are in lots of different formats. They are sometimes handwritten. If I go back, 50 years old machine, there are lots of different sensors, and all of that is built for a given purpose. None of these systems are built with service mindset or servitization mindset. A CRM is very customer focused with a focus on marketing to them, quoting them, invoicing them. And ERP is very much built for manufacturing. Whereas for servitization, everything needs to be asset centric so that you can serve the customer throughout that lifetime of the equipment. So that's what industry is very much focused on: manufacturers helping you to increase that after sales and servitization through AI and IoT. And so we provide the platform, which is very much white labeled. So you can white label it. And then you can create value for yourself as manufacturer to build more loyalty and to increase efficiency for service technicians. And ultimately, as Parikshit also mentioned, right, it's about creating that partnership with the customers to create more peace of mind for them, and they are more than and they'll be willing to share to increase the share of wallet with you. And it's that partnership that needs to be created. So going back to this white paper that Parikshit talked about, I'm going to take three examples from them. One is the first one: how can AI help consumable and parts management and part sale for manufacturers? Second is the whole growth of ChatGPT, Gemini that has happened. How can we bring that to enable self-repair and self-service? And then the third part would be focused on creating new business models. And we have a patent in that space, and so would love to share that. So the first part is doing parts and consumables sell for made-to-order machinery is hard. And if you remember Parikshit's, staircase, base services, intermediary services, and advanced services, this is very much how do you expand the base of being connected to your customers. And we have one of our customers is PDC Machines. They provide hydrogen compressors, and in their case, very customized machinery, very specialized machinery. And let's have a look at how we are using AI to make the whole parts ordering and parts identification very, very simple. So I'm just going to share my screen, and I'm going to go to, so it's a white label platform. The customer has that hydrogen compressor in front of them. They want to order a part. They can just scan that QR code. And as soon as they scan that QR code, a very hyper personalized parts e-commerce platform comes up. Now they're able to either click on this and they can identify, how to buy that. Or they could actually go into this and say, hey, I want to order this check valve, or I want to order this valve, visually identify what that product is, add to cart, and then do this checkout. Reflect on your current experience. How is the part ordering process? If it's made to order, more likely the process is you have a support or a service team where people can call and send an email, and then they'll go through an engineering system, an ERP system, and a CRM system, and eventually, pass that, and there will be a few back and forth to give that order to the customer. Now that whole experience is self-service, and the way we've used AI here is in three ways. For some of the older equipments where there are handwritten bill of materials and diagrams, we are able to use AI to bring all of that and enable this much faster, which previously would have either never been done or would have taken many man hours to do. Second, for some of these engineering drawings, we are able to automatically identify the bill of materials so that it is faster time to market. And third, some of these information that is in the bill of materials, you might want to hide, and you might want to create a recursive subscription offering, and all of those can be enabled also. So that is very much AI in the space of parts. Let me go back to the second example. If I share my screen again. This one we are again very excited about, which is the role of AI in personalized support and service. So what I believe is, your working hours would be, 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, but you still need to support your customers. They might be in different regions, in different countries, and you want to support them throughout the for all the 24 hours and make sure that they are catered for. And so this is where our AI-based self-service machine copilot comes in, where we take data from all of these different data objects. So your IoT data, warranty information, any service reports, manuals, all of that comes in. And now, very similar to ChatGPT, we have created something called digital twin GPT. That means the customer is able to self-service or self-repair by asking natural language questions and interacting with the machine. So here's an example. So let's say I have a chiller from a chiller manufacturer. I'm at this Texas site. As soon as I go in, I see, hey, one of these chillers is not working. And it shows that it's red. I can go there, and then I can then go to my Twin GPT and then ask natural language questions. Let's say I'm getting an alarm, so I can say, what does the alarm code ALM 203 mean? And it will give me an answer. Alarm code 203 means X, Y, and Z, and then it can help me fix it. Right. So again, it's able to, and the difference here is we are using the OpenAI's language translator. We are using all of this different information that is associated with that asset and helping the customers solve those issues very quickly. So how do I fix it? It's able to understand what it means. It's able to understand what asset is it for, and then it helps me give those answers. So again, making it self-service, making it enabling self-repair, and creating those partnerships. And you can build this in your business model that if you are part of an annual maintenance contract, we will be by your side throughout that lifetime. And here is our commitment to that support. And finally, we can use AI to enable new business models. So often what we have seen is, you have a machine. Typically, they'll have a 1 year or a 3 year warranty, and for that warranty period, they would come to you to replace parts to do your service. And then there is something called a warranty cliff. As soon as the warranty finishes, you also see that with your cars. You'll probably go to your local garage to get those things fixed, and that potential service and parts revenue goes to either counterfeit or local garages. And so there is that potential lost aftermarket revenue that goes away. And so what we have created is an incentive-driven warranty approach, or an incentive-driven approach for manufacturers to give incentives to the customers to do the right behavior. So if they maintain the machine with original spares, with original consumables, and maintain at right service events, then we can extend the warranty of that equipment, and that will enable you to capture more of that aftermarket lifetime. So if you are able to increase your lifetime penetration, typically I have seen they have a penetration of 15 to 20%, but if you're able to increase that to 40%, over a lifetime of that equipment, you're able to increase your profitability by multiple percentage points. And that is the game changer. You'll see, and I've seen similar examples happening in the automotive industry where, they'll increase the warranty by 1 year for every year that, you will service the car with Toyota. And so that is the kind of AI model that we have, where all of this different data goes into our AI model. We are able to give weights to it, and then we can create various different incentive models. You could build it based on warranty, you can build it based on resale value, you could build it based on health score or a sustainability score. You can build those asset scores and create new business outcomes for them. The way it would look is, I'll give you an example. So here is my chiller. I bought it a few years ago, and if you registered with me, then you get some points. If you did a genuine oil change, you get more points. If you did the scheduled maintenance, you get more points. So I'm creating a gamification of service in this whole process, and the more points you get, your warranty increases. So I'm using that to create an asset score, and then you can use that asset score, like a frequent flyer mile, for various purposes. In this case, I'm using it for warranty. So again, this is very much a new business model which is powered by AI, and before, it was very difficult to manage these sets of data to enable these kind of business models. All right, so I would encourage you to ask as many questions as possible for myself or for Parikshit. A couple of last slides, and then I'll open up for questions. Our purpose of today is very much we want to enable this journey of service-led businesses for manufacturers and making it faster, enable you faster time to market. We both, from a consulting perspective, the Advanced Services Group is definitely the authority when it comes to enabling businesses to enable servitization. From a technology perspective, we are very much focused on enabling business outcomes very, very fast. And so we can work together, come up, do a workshop, enable a pilot very, very quickly so that you can get customer feedback and then iterate quickly. I think continuous iterations and faster validation is one of the key aspects when it comes to servitization. And so that's something that we can enable. Feel free to drop me a line or Parikshit a line if you would like to engage here. And finally, there are lots of resources that are available. We will share these slides as well as these resources after the session. But for now, I would like to open up for questions. And yeah, I'm looking forward to questions from everyone in the audience. All right, so please put in the question in the Q&A window. I see a few hands going up.
Yeah, and while people put in some questions, Achint, I just wanted to reiterate the message you had about you being a partner in helping manufacturers to accelerate this journey of servitization. one of the key challenges we come across when we are consulting with businesses on how to do servitization is they come across technology partners and implementation partners who have a lot of solutions but aren't tuned in with the idea of servitization, and they feel, manufacturers feel, we understand it now. Now we have to go and teach these implementation consultants and these digital solution guys on how to do it. And this is a big disconnect. And I would encourage all of the people to really understand the value of this connection. I have found, having worked with Industrility and Achint, that understanding the importance of servitization, what it is and what it is not, is a key driver in choosing the right digital solutions going forward. Because you might end up with a scenario where you have the most beautiful dashboards, you have the best sensors out there on the machine, but they're collecting the wrong data for the wrong purpose, and that's not a business model. That's some costs, and nobody wants that. Yeah.
Absolutely, that's so true, and I think we went through that. I think in the last years also, where companies had I would not name consulting companies, but they would have consulting companies come in. They would create these roadmaps, and then they would come out of the business, and then they would have the business wanting to implement something like this, and then they'll go and shop for, well, one, either shop for technology companies, or worse still, they would create a team of 20, 30 people and build this in-house. And what this means is they believe that technology is an asset and they want to build this asset, but this kind of technology is the fastest depreciating asset when it comes to manufacturers. And they would rather get expertise from outside rather than build this. So I think on both sides, and that's why I think we've come together and see if we can give a more holistic approach and a faster time to market. And so I think that is very, very good from a collaboration perspective. If you can bring both the business outcomes, if you can bring technology and consulting, if you can bring all three together, I think it'll definitely create a faster time to market. While questions are coming in, Jinesh, if you can. All right, I think there are a couple of questions that have come through. So, what is the oldest dated document that you have been able to use AI to digitize, and what was the accuracy rating on the digitized output? All right, so that's more of a tech question. I can take that. We have taken data that has been as old as, I think, 35 or 40 years old. So 35-year-old equipment with handwritten and scanned copies. And then these were 40-50 page documents of parts, bill of materials, and machinery layouts. And we were able to digitize that, but not just digitize. With the power of AI, we are able to comprehend how all of that hierarchy can stay together, and then able to take that and make that old equipment digitally enabled for that customer. So I think one of the approaches I've seen is they leave anything that's older than 15 years, they'll leave it aside and not even deal with from a servitization perspective. But now, because of AI, you are able to digitize some of those old things and actually bring them into the service landscape. And I think that is very, very beneficial. Parikshit, maybe I have a question for you.
Sure, go for it.
I have seen businesses servitize, but also deservitize, and so those happen quite a lot. So I've seen that in Volvo. I've seen that in some other where they deservitize, and so they keep going back and forth. I truly believe all businesses will servitize at some stage, but why don't you give us some thoughts on why would companies go down that route of deservitization and eventually find their rhythm? What is your recommendation from trial, fail fast, try early, collaborate? What are your thoughts on what could they have done differently?
Yeah, I mean, We have seen some interesting milestones in their journey when businesses go through this process of servitization. And even if we take the example of Goodyear, I bigged them up at the beginning and said they launched tire as a service, but to bring them back from cloud nine and on earth, one of the key barriers they faced, and I'm speaking of the VP of innovation that we worked with in Goodyear, and putting this case of we will start competing through as a service models instead of just selling products to the board of directors was a bigger challenge than convincing the customers because of what I mentioned, the inertia that you bring with your existing business. And the big challenge that this VP of innovation faced was going to the CFO and saying, this is going to add to a new revenue stream. They said, this is all well and good, but how many tires are you selling every year? And the whole point wasn't about selling more tires. But of course, that is the bread and butter. You cannot be going around challenging the bread and butter of the business. That's how you keep the lights on. And of course, that's not the intention of servitization. And in that case, there was the back and forth of should we go back, focus on products? So another business that I worked with captured this very well, a business leader, who said, in such a large business, we take 20 steps forward and 19 steps back the next day. But as a cumulative, we have taken one step forward. And that's how this process goes. And it is an iterative process where you go back and forth to confirm that our original business is not threatened and our future business can actually deliver value to us. And taking the example, another one in mobility sector is MAN Trucks. And they created not trucks as a service, but more of performance advisory services of helping truck drivers perform better on their trucks. And the result of this was they were able to convert the customers from other truck manufacturers to MAN trucks as they saw more and more value of using MAN trucks. So at the end of the day, the argument of the services is in a way taking me away from my product business was actually the other way around. It enabled more product business because it demonstrated value to the customer. So that's something we have seen is that it will be an iterative process. And my one point advice would be start on an experimental level and isolate yourself to run in parallel with business as usual. You're not replacing business as usual. You're creating a different revenue stream. And that's what I would focus on.
That's great. Thank you. I've got two more questions I'll take, and then we are almost close to the time. So one around AI. What are the legal aspects of AI generated advice? We are in heavy industry market and in which faulty advice might in fact injure people. Completely agree. And I think AI should be used as an assistant. It is not God. It is not 100% accurate answer. So AI is very much an assistance. Even on any of the AI responses, you would see this is AI generated, and so you need to check your manuals, check with the manufacturers, etc. So it is very much helping the service technician, helping the operator, helping the manufacturer to create efficiencies. We have seen efficiencies as high as 80% when it comes to finding information, when it comes to resolving issues, when it comes to solving issues faster. And so it helps you get to the answer faster, but it will not solve the problem for you. Ultimately, it's the humans who are going to solve the problem, humans who are going to enable that uptime. And AI is just enabling that for you. So it's almost like a co-pilot. It's not going to fly the plane for you, but it's going to help you identify if there are issues and how to fix them. And then one last question, Parikshit, for you. How do you redefine dealer relationships with regards to maintenance services? You touched on it on your presentation. There is manufacturers, there's customers, and then there are dealers. How does this business model either affect them, help them, and how to crack that nut?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. And I'm very passionate about this topic of managing these relationships. This can be navigated And there are examples, and Achint mentioned it at the very beginning, Caterpillar. Caterpillar is a great example of how your dealer network can enable this service transformation. Because one thing to remember is the manufacturer doesn't have to do it themselves entirely. They can depend on these other actors and take them on the journey. And this can very well be navigated. And we have a tool called value network analysis that really helps to untangle this, what we would call the value network of dealers, distributors, installers, on ground teams, and whether to bypass them, which I wouldn't recommend because they hold a lot of power on the ground, or whether to absorb them with you and take them on the journey. So if you would like, we could definitely have a separate conversation, and we can share some case studies on how Caterpillar has done it. But it is possible, and they can be part of the business model. They are not a deterrent or a barrier to the business model.
All right, fantastic. And one last technical question. This came via WhatsApp. Uh, so it came on WhatsApp. What so we are using RAG strategies. What AI strategies are you using to reduce hallucinations? So great questions. Um, so you're right. AI was creating hallucinations, let's say 6 months before. It is improving significantly. We are also using RAG frameworks. We are also using a lot of multimodal and neural networks to build these AI models, and we are continuously improving the model also. So we have a feature which has a heart on it. So if you click on that heart, it actually reinforces that AI model for that specific customer and for that specific model type. And so the more people who would use those AI based support services, and the more feedback we get, the better it gets. But you're right, hallucinations have happened. It is part of that AI journey, but it does not mean it will only get better, and it is getting better at a much faster rate. And new AI agents are being developed and are being created, and that is where the industry is going. And so it is just going to get better from where we are right now. Fantastic. So thank you very much for spending the last 1 hour with us. Parikshit, thank you very much for your time and coming and presenting on our webinar. Greatly appreciated. And all of you have a great evening, and looking forward to connecting with you again. Thank you very much.
Thanks all.
Bye.